I'm just amazed at the way you have transformed supply chains in multiple organizations, and then you also teach the young students and make them supply chain engineers. Okay, so that looks very fantastic. So you have a both practical experience where you have transformed supply chains. At the same time, you teach, and then you write books. Okay, so I think you will be the best person to add value to our audience and give the fantastic view of a whole supply chain domain. Okay, so you can introduce quickly from your side, sir, and then please go ahead, Dr. Kalyan. You can share your screen if you are able to do that. Yeah, we are able to see your screen. Maybe your mic is in mute. Just make sure. Yeah. It's not in mute. Yeah. So you can put into a screen slideshow. Then you can proceed. Dr. Kalyan, we are unable to hear you still. Maybe you're speaking. We don't hear. I think Deep, are you able to hear?
Am I audible? No.
Yeah, it's very much. Yes, exactly.
I'm audible.
Yes. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Please go
All
ahead.
right. Okay.
Yeah. So you can put in a slide share format so that you can see the full picture. Yeah.
Yes, I have shared my screen also. Is my screen visible?
It's visible, but not in a presentation mode. It's a normal mode. Yeah.
I presented also. Maybe it's
coming up.
Taking a minute.
It's loading. Yeah.
Coming up.
Yeah.
Okay. So I am on my intro slide. Can you please confirm if you are able to see that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Firstly, thank you, Mr. Sheikh and the team at Data Labs for giving me this opportunity to speak about this topic on key supply chain challenges in industries. Very quickly about me, I have nearly about 30 years of experience, largely as a supply chain management practitioner and consultant for about 20 years after my graduation. Then the last 10 years, I had been on the other side of the fence, as in I am teaching on supply chain management. So I do write a lot of case studies, and as Mr. Sheikh has already introduced, I have also written a book on lean management. I have done my PhD in logistics from IIM Lucknow, and PGPX from IIM Ahmedabad. That's briefly about me. Whenever I'm asked of to talk about supply chain, I am reminded of this great English poem. Very quickly, for want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost. For want of a horse, the rider was lost. For want of a rider, the battle was lost. For want of a battle, the kingdom was lost. All for want of a nail. I feel this poem is a very apt representation of all shapes and sizes. So with that backdrop, let me get into my presentation itself. This is basically in two parts. The second part is what I've been asked to really talk about. However, I feel that unless if we don't know how we have come here, we wouldn't know how to change our course if required. So therefore, I presentation into two parts. First half, I'll talk about how we reached here. Pradeep, the very first presenter today, did talk about a little bit on the supply chain evolution. And Mr. Kalyan, Mr. Sundaran, and Mr. Sheikh also talk about the futuristic aspects of supply chain. I'll try to add value to whatever they have already presented. So with that backdrop, what we of how the work at the organization are happening is that over a period of time there has been a
So, Doctor,
gradual industry.
still the screen is not in
Yeah.
the presentation mode.
I would. One
It's not in
second.
a slide share mode, the presentation mode. I'm seeing like this. Deep, are you
Yeah, it is not in presentation mode.
the present? Can you just make it in a presentation mode so that I reshare it, please?
I am doing that. It was for me, but so I'm saying optimize for text and images or optimize for motion and video. Text and images, right?
Yes,
Say
that's right.
share. I say so I'm sharing a window, and this is the. Acha, maybe I should say entire screen. I'll do entire screen. Not no.
You could just choose the presentation to be shared, not the entire
That
screen.
yeah. Okay. Okay. So maybe does it require me to first put in PPT mode, then ask? Let me do that.
Yes, that has to be in P mode first, and then you can share it.
That's what is the issue. Okay. Okay. Now I get it. Okay. How about now?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's perfect.
Perfect. Now, please go ahead.
All right. Okay. Okay. Apologies for the confusion. So different, softwares operate differently. So I'm more used to MS Teams. Cisco is slightly different. Anyways, so I was on this slide. Can I move on from here?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Okay. So as I was saying, the work has gradually moved on to what is called as being industrialized. So what I mean by that, one second, please. I'll bring my pointer. Yeah. So what I mean is, early on, any given industry started on a low volume in a job shop kind of a mode, and then gradually, when the businesses started to get more popular and demand started to increase, organizations have started to move towards a slightly higher volume, which requires a different kind of a production setup. And then gradually they moved on to much higher volumes, which is more on the assembly line and a continuous process kind of a setup. They, most industries did move in this diagonal direction, and a couple of examples. So this is how the bow and arrows were made from before industrialization, and how the guns are made today on an assembly line. Likewise, how vehicles were made early on, and how we see cars being made today. So that is the move that we have seen across all the industries. The implication of this is that early on, companies were doing all by themselves. By all, I mean all the upstream activities. Therefore, were more vertically integrated. By virtue of moving to a higher volume, they started looking for partners who do pieces of the value chain better than themselves. So therefore, the integration is more horizontal as we move to the modern day 20th century. The implication of this is that early on it was more about managing your own operations, but what it means today is growing importance of supply chain. By supply chain, I mean also the logistics, transportation, everything that is involved to get materials from various entities at right time at the OEM side, so that there's not a lot of inventory built, and so on and so forth, right? So this has been how we have come here. Also, this is another view. There is a increased integration that we've seen over a period of time. Early on in 60s, each department was operating in isolation. Gradually, it started to get consolidated. Mr. Pradeep was mentioning that a lot of early procurement departments were renamed as supply chain departments. In fact, I was part of such renaming exercise. I was working as a GET at Tata Motors in their Lucknow plant, and we were earlier then called as materials department, and we got renamed as supply chain department. That is a move towards making each of these activities more consolidated. Later we've got the transportation and warehouse partners onto the so-called integration mode. Finally got the suppliers on board also, leveraging IT and technology support. And today we are moving towards Industry 4.0 powered supply chain 4.0. And Fruc actually has a number of tools based on Mr. Sheikh's presentation, number of tools that are developed over SC 4.2. Okay, a slightly different view of how organizations can pursue different supply chain strategies. Here, what I'm trying to communicate here in this slide is there are three kinds of buffers that organizations usually keep. One is inventory, second is capacity, and third is time to deliver. So these three are in some sense a buffer that a supplier, a manufacturer keeps to himself. And as you move from time to capacity to inventory, your degree, your ability to meet demand increases. Inventory essentially is a material form in the finished goods. As and when the order comes in, I'm able to supply. Capacity is I have the ability to supply, but I need to use the capacity to produce. And time implies that I will need to get lead time. So I will have all the resources and capacity, but then I'll start producing only when I pick up the order from the customer. Now each of these buffers are used in different ways by different industries, depending on uh, the demand that they face, right? So when we say demand, we are actually looking at once again, Mr. Sheikh talked about aggregation, disaggregation of demand. Demand has three, dimensions to it. I mean, the product hierarchy, the geographic hierarchy, and the time hierarchy, right? So you can have the so-called variability of demand, either high, medium, or low. Typically, those industries that face a lower level of demand uncertainty, so this is the picture that you see, demand uncertainty, they can afford to use all their capacity and keep their available to promise, that is basically the inventory, almost as finished goods stage, right? So companies that have stable demand, basically staple products, and which is called as usually make to stock in the industry parlance. And as you move to different higher variable products, the extent of buffer you keep will shift, right? So you will keep less of inventory, more of capacity, and more of time. Likewise, in a make to order environment, you even procure the components based on the customer order. Therefore you see the variability to be even more higher here. Finally, in engineer to order, very less of inventory is kept, because every order is very different with respect to another, because the variability is extremely high. And when it will come, where it will come from, and what kind of a component, all of that will be quite different. So organizations rely on what is called as capable to promise as a buffer to keep. I think this is a good framework for organizations to figure out as to where do we would like to operate, and based on that, what kind of buffers we would like to leverage, and that sort of leads us to picking the right strategy. Now, not stopping there, I mean, so while the previous picture says that you can have one of the either of the approaches, but over a period of time, companies such as Toyota and other lean pioneers have questioned this concept of not getting enough variety in assembled to order environment, right? So basically, sorry, get the variety of in assembled to order, and also be able to serve the customer's requirement fairly quickly now, that is not have too much time taken. So from mass production, if you see product variety has reduced, volume has increased, then came the concepts of lean production, where people have gave a very hard look at how the processes themselves are designed, and shave off all the waste, either in terms of material or in terms of time, thereby able to reduce the batch size, and hence be able to achieve what is called as mass customization. So
We lost Dr. Kalyan.
Stopping there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes,
Hello,
sir.
am I visible?
Please, yeah, please go ahead, please. Yeah, yes. Please share screen again.
Okay. Okay. So I was talking about mass customization. Now the next stage is what is called as personalization. I mean, we are not looking at just creating variants that are as configured as per the customer requirement, but the entire my earlier presenter used the term, the B2B team has used the term customer journey mapping, right? So the customer's journey from the time he places an order till the time is both combination of the physical product that she receives and also all the other softer functional requirements in terms of other experience aspects that we can codify onto our value chain in terms of how we will do the product customization, do the process customization, and then what kind of other elements we will put in the entire delivery platform. So essentially the supply chains are now talking about creating a personalized delivery experience for individualized customers. Probably not there for all the industries, but direction. Achieve higher levels. I'm getting disconnected every now and then. All right. Can you please confirm if my screen is visible?
Yeah, we can see you. Yeah, please.
All right. Okay.
Perhaps
Yeah.
maybe internet connectivity. Yeah.
Yeah, some internet connectivity. All right.
Okay.
So this is a slide that talks about how the integration has been deepening in supply chain. So I'll talk about 5 different views quickly. So let me move on. So first one is called a structural view. This whenever we talk of a supply chain, I think this kind of a diagram will automatically come in front of anybody, right? So I think it's pretty evident. But what is important that I want to communicate here is that in the very early stages of so-called leveraging IT for achieving integration, what this kind of a structural view enabled companies is to look at their master data. By master data, various entities of the supply chain are modeled properly. I mean, what is my manufacturing plant? What is my product hierarchy? And what are my supply base like? Who are my logistics partners? What are my various legs? So this is what is called as metadata of supply chain. The focus was more on that and make sure that that is accurate. Then later came what is called as a transactional view of supply chains. I'm not, there is another view that talks about, MRP, material requirement plan, manufacturing requirement, ERP and all. I am taking a slightly different angle here. So after metadata, master data, transaction have come to be embedded on the organizational systems, which is, fundamentally a process view of supply chain. So all the ERPs that came about have had the workflow management encoded on them. So if a purchase or requisition is raised, automatically the purchase requisition based on whatever the logic is supposed to go to the person in purchase department to approve or to process it further. Likewise, all the transactions are going across various divisions, and therefore from master data we moved on to how do we smoothen the workflows, and if there are errors in transactions, then how do we handle those exceptions in as quick a manner as possible. So that is a cross-functional view. Next came when we have mastered this, then the flow view that has come in. So we all know supply chains basically, bring material from sources of supply through various, hoops, so to speak, various nodes and links, whatever, finally to the end customer. And there is usually a, quantity that is demanded and quantity that is supplied. Now the ideal utopian situation is when the supply is exactly equal to demand, and then the flow is also exactly equal to whatever that supply is. Then we really have no need for any kind of worry, right? Usually that never happens. There are a number of reasons as to why that never happens. There are fluctuations in demand, supply lead time are not constant, and so on and so forth. So this being the reality, next improvement in supply chain integration has been in the form of what is called as optimization. So in fact, this was where I had moved into supply chain consulting. I got trained in I2. I think it was one of the very early supply chain planning software which got acquired by JDA and all. So this is the so-called optimization is given various constraints by various entities. How do we optimize the flow at a lower cost and achieve a better service levels? So this is the next step that we saw in happening in supply chains. Then the next stage is a systems view, where I know that there are parts of my supply chain that are more tuned towards order fulfillment, and there are parts of the supply chain that are more tuned towards, because of the economies of scale and things like that, more tuned towards what is called as make to stock kind of an environment. So there is a boundary in any given supply chain, uh, right of which is a pull strategy, which is more closer to the customer. It is called as produce to order, and left of which is produce to forecast or make to stock, which is usually typically based on push strategy. So the Frusi presentation demo did talk about these order cycles also, right? So there is this customer order cycle that triggers replenishment cycle, which triggers manufacturing. So the important thing or the development here is what we have seen increasingly is the customer orders that were coming in are more what do you call unitary in number, largely on account of you see this e-commerce kind of development. So organizations needed to define where is it that they will have their available to promise boundaries and capable to promise boundaries. So this has resulted in some of us may have heard this term that has become popular in the recent SCM literature, is a two-speed supply chain, right? So I will have to have a supply chain that can comfortably operate in two speeds. The upfront end, the customer facing end, is a faster speed supply chain focusing on service levels, and the upstream supply chain is a slower supply chain, but that focuses on costs and economies of scale and inventory optimization and things like that. Now we are no longer talking about a single supply chain having common level of metrics, but a more holistic, more systemic view of supply chains. Okay, and moving further on, what you today have is a network view. Once again, I think this is quite close to the Frusi demo, where the multi-tier network was presented. So an example of this is Cisco, which connects its suppliers, customers, contract manufacturers, and various other entities on its supply chain network. It's no longer a linear view of supply chain, but it's a network. And then orders flow based on pre-codified whatever workflows, depending on whether the item is a commoditized item or requires assembled to order kind of a scenario. So the flows are different, service levels are different, and likewise, right? So from linear view of supply chain, what is emerged is what is called as multi-sided supply chains, or more popularly called as platforms. Platforms are a way of future supply chains. So continuing, essentially you see, so many entities. I mean, it's one representation of the previous slide itself. You have distributors, you have manufacturers, suppliers, contract manufacturers, LSPs. All of these are sort of connected in some kind of a web kind of form, which can quite aptly called as some kind of a digital nervous system. So what are we talking? We are talking of some kind of an ecosystem which operates. I mean, there is some kind of a feedback mechanism in it, and based on the so the word that was used as sense and respond in the supply chain literature somehow sometimes ignores the fact that there is something called as a feedback that also is present in a systemic view of supply chain. So the feedback is some kind of a self-correcting, self-adjusting kind of a mechanism that is a typical natural ecosystems, typical characteristic of natural ecosystem. So people are looking at supply chains to evolve into that kind of a mode. So that all put together can be thought of as the history of supply chains and the future. These are some of the we all know as what in terms of what future for supply chains look like. Platform based supply chain, digital, particularly P2P, person to person, platform powered, empowered supply chains are eliminating the need for any intermediaries. So we don't know what the future looks like, but some industries do not have any intermediaries. I mean, your Airbnb or Olas or the people like that, all thanks to the developments on Web 3.0, and then robotics, automation, and AI. I fully concur with the risk factors that were presented early on, identified by WF. AI is as much I don't know as much a potential risk as it is an aid. So it's a very hot potato. I mean, people who are handling it should really be very careful, and supply chains especially, thanks to the feedback effect and all, things can go really out of control very quickly if wrong signal has been considered as the true reality. So that's something that organizations have to be very careful about before they jump into the AI bandwagon. So all that being where it is, more things change, as they say, more they are the same. So sometime in 2002, a Harvard professor by name Lee Howe has published a paper called AAA supply chain. Basically what he says is, based on your characteristics of demand and characteristics of supply, different kinds of supply chains are appropriate for you. It's a again reasonably good framework for us to think about how my demand situation is changing, how my supply situation is changing, and accordingly design my supply chains in a suitable manner. So the AAA stands for agile, aligned, and adaptive supply chain. So if the supply uncertainty is low and demand uncertainty is low, you should focus on what's called as efficiency. And if it is high on both fronts, you should focus on what is called as agile supply chains. If uncertainty is high but supply is uncertainty is low, you should put on responsive supply chains. There is a slide later on that I'll speak about this also. But if supply risk is high, then this is another thing that we are seeing as one of the challenges in the modern day supply chains. I mean, there are unexpected disruptions. So risk hedging is becoming a necessary element or necessary key skill, or in the supply chain software, necessary element that is required for organizations to be able to react quickly for any disruption that we foresee. So that is my first part. Second part is various challenges that we are seeing in supply chains. How am I on time? How much time am I left with? 47. Okay. So these are a set of supply chain challenges. So I mean, all I did was hit the supply chain challenges on Google, and it has populated all these things for me, right? So what I've done is basically grouped all of these supply chain risks into certain logical groups, and I'm presenting that to the audience here. So managing costs. Costs are sometimes not entirely, the supply chain costs are not entirely in the hands of the supply chain managers. One of the biggest costs typically in supply chains is the freight cost, and that is fluctuating rather rapidly on account of various technical and geopolitical reasons. Technical, I say, because there is a shift towards more sustainable fuels, and geopolitical because of the oil supply, oil related issues. So that's one cause that is supply chains do not have a lot of control on. Then other costs are also sort of rising. Commodities price also continuously fluctuates based on the different weather conditions at different places. Therefore, one of the essentially, I mean, to sum this slide, one of the key challenge that supply chain managers are facing is controlling costs. Next, inventory is one of the cost adding elements. So you may want to recall my previous slide where I talked about keeping inventory at right places. So if that kind of a strategy is carefully thought about, then the cost of inventory can be possibly brought down. So one is about the cost. Second is moving the material. We are continuously hearing about various this one about various ports being congested. That is a regular feature in business press now. Logistics getting disrupted is another challenges. Sometimes there are delays on account of various factors, and sometimes the material itself is not available. So right from identifying the right supplier to moving it and to get to our production facility, there are numerous challenges that a typical supply chain manager needs to be aware of and be able to manage effectively. One another development we see these days is at the global value chains that have over a period of time got developed in a certain direction are now getting reoriented because of various, again, economic and non-economic reasons. So this is from a report by McKinsey, which has studied few industries and figured out whether the existing global value chains will hold as it is, or will there be any shift. So they did identify that some industries such as say semiconductors or communications equipment are quite prone to shifting because of non-economic factors. Transportation equipment and electrical equipment industries are likely to shift on account of more on account of economic factors, right? So the energy costs themselves are different in different parts of the world. That also is one of the reasons why some industries move their production base from one location to another location over the years. That's another factor that supply chain manager needs to be very cognizant about. Supply chain configurations have continuously been evolving. So right from the early days where we saw vertical integration to horizontal integration, that has changed a lot these days, right? So supply chains are more fragmented and they're getting more complex also, in the sense that this complexity is on account of number of suppliers, number of components, number of entities, legs that I use in my transportation. All of these add to complexity of my supply chains, and more diversification is pursued by supply chains to mitigate risks. So these factors contribute to challenges in managing supply chains. How would I configure my supply chain given what my strategic objectives are? So we saw a version of this already in one of my previous slides, but this is a more modern kind of a version where if the volume of production is high or low, and the source of value, I mean, the customers look at my product as more from a cost perspective or more from a personalization perspective, the right supply chain can be possibly thought of using this grid. Regardless, if the volume is low, undoubtedly there is a shift towards moving smaller plants than bigger plants. I mean, for various reasons, the big plant that were at some point of time, I mean, a couple of decades back, then big plants were more in favor because of economies of scale and etc., are falling out of favor. I feel these days we see newer capital is being put in for smaller plants. So that is one development that we see. Now, if you're, if you're going to be cost competitive in some parts of the world, robotics and automation has already reached a stage where its cost on a per unit basis is lower than that of the human manpower cost. So those economies are moving towards a lot of automation. We hear of these dark factories and all, so where the cost of production is much lower. But more manual centric kind of economies may see that move happen. I don't know when, if and when it will happen. But if your source of value is more customized, then you would want to have different leverage different.
We lost you, Dr. Kalyan.
For some categories, the demand has gone down.
Please, can you share? There was
Yes,
a,
yes.
there was a disconnect.
Yeah, is my screen visible?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was saying that on the demand side, a lot of developments that is causing one's ability, the supply chain manager's ability to do effective forecasting. So yeah, I mean, we do see a lot of development in terms of using AI ML for forecasting. We need to see strike a balance in terms of what is happening on the reality and how do I make it usable input into my forecasting algorithms. Sustainability, more is being said than what should be done, but it certainly is facing the entire humanity is facing this particular challenge. Every entity, including consumers and organizations, need to keep this at the back of their mind with respect to every decision. So no longer can one afford to ignore sustainability. In fact, in the previous presentation, there was a mention of ESG also. So while sustainability is a bigger requirement, more immediate is also regulatory compliance and supply chains being the so-called materials move cross borders. mm, uh, Countries consider controlling supply chains from the viewpoint of achieving high levels of compliance. So this is a reality that all supply chain managers once again need to ensure, be compliant and be questioned later on. So all the software that is out that is used by uh, various companies is giving, and that also helps in achieving some kind of a regulatory compliance. Digital impact is the I think my second last challenge. Digitalization is hitting every so-called facet of supply chains are not escaping. Huge amount of data is getting generated, non so-called unstructured data. Marketing, on the marketing domain, people are trying ways of trying to make sense, achieve insights on this lot of social media generated kind of content. There is a lot of talk, at least on how one can make use of the generative AI on supply chains. I'm yet to see a very convincing use case, but certainly increasingly one of the challenge that supply chain managers have to deal with is more data than less. So how does one address that? Next challenge that digitalization brings to our fort is cyber security, both at the factory front more and more digitalization and more move towards Industry 4.0 an organization does, the stronger and stronger its firewalls need to be, in the sense that for a smart hacker, so to speak, it becomes easy for one to get into an organizational systems and take control of whatever their factory systems or stuff like that. That is at the manufacturing level, and then you have your information systems itself that also carry a lot of customer data, a lot of financial data, that all also need to be protected. With increased digitalization, this becomes a absolute mandatory requirement, and supply chain managers need to worry about. I mean, we've had quite a few incidents in the recent past itself, including that utility ransomware attack in the Southern America. That brought down a lot of supply chains. So no longer is this problem of IT nerds, but it is also a problem of supply chain managers also. Then digitization, yeah, so I talked about this already. So while those are challenges, if one is careful about how to use digitalization, then there are many benefits that are out there to be gained. So some examples are, one can improve R&D efficiency by 20 to 30% by implementing simulation based design, having analytics that can give you suggestions in terms of which projects to pursue. Similarly, on the procurement front, you can achieve equal amount of benefits by implementing spend analytics. Manufacturing, all the MES and then IoT based devices can help you achieve a better performance. You can do predictive maintenance and bring down the downtimes, and that is a better utilization of front. The entire routing can possibly, on account of your GPS info, dynamic rerouting is quite possible. And there is a lot of talk about a digital twin. I mean, I have my own supply chains twin. I know I keep getting signals in terms of by track and trace method that I have. I can very quickly identify where a bottleneck is getting developed, and I can quickly subvert that. On the process front, I can achieve big amount of improvements either by automation or by improvements, and that I'm looking at benefits to the tune of almost up to 50%. So digitalization poses just like any new development, poses both risks and benefits. Supply chain managers and organizational managers need to navigate very carefully through the waters. Various sectors get at least use cases are getting developed to see how digitalization can help in these industries. So automotive, so for example, using autonomous driving is a big use case of AI and other technologies coming together, telematics and all of that in the case of automotive. Energy and power, with the increased cost of energy, optimizing the usage challenge. And likewise, all other industries, there are a lot of potential use cases that are out there can get benefited by adopting digitalization. Having said that, not have adopted digitalization to different degrees on account of various internal and external factors. So if you see this, this is from a Harvard Business article. If you see, so these are the gray implies low level of so there are such as your media, professional services, BFSI segment. They have implemented high levels of digitalization. Now you can see this from a process perspective also. So
yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Some technical glitches all the time. Anyway, so a good question. Digital twins aren't necessarily only for manufacturing setups, the factories alone. Any place which you can model digitally any operation of your organization that you can model digitally is qualified to create a digital twin. So if you have a warehouse, you can as well create a model of that in the digital world. In fact, there are software vendors, WMS vendors that are working with their clients in creating digital twins. So essentially, and then the ULIP example that you have taken is a fantastic extension that is possible for Indian supply chains to incorporate that in their digital twin. So every operation can definitely be made. You can make a digital twin of it. There are values, benefits that are to be gained by doing so.
Perfect, perfect, sir. I think one more question was related to, just wrote it down. In your supply chain process, I just unable to get it. In the supply chain process, the artificial intelligence part. Okay.
Yeah.
So how does that you think? How does that it will be applied in supply chain going forward? What are the top 3 areas in your view that can be applied in supply chain in next 1 or 2 or 3 years? Yeah.
Okay. So one place where there's been a lot of advancement that has happened, that is leveraging AI in managing supply chains, is demand forecasting. So rightly so, AI as a engine can process a lot of information and run various algorithms to be able to arrive at some end output, and using various machine learning techniques, one can create forecasts, and there has been a lot of development on that front, and the use cases have some economic benefit as well. Second, I would think is your dynamic routing, where any disruption in the existing supply network, your what do you call planning algorithms can be tuned to read those disruptions and be able to make adjustments to the routing, is second application. Third is on the factory floor, using the characteristics of the equipment. I mean, monitoring the characteristics of the equipment, I can figure out some patterns that could indicate to me that there is a potential breakdown that's out there, and therefore take a preventive action. I think these are 3 good use cases of AI in the supply chain domain.
Perfect, sir. Perfect. I think those are the 2 questions we got it. So you did not conclude on your presentation. So if you would like to just conclude it based on your yeah.
Certainly. Did you can you tell me on what slide I was lost?
No, it was almost at the end,
what was
actually. I don't remember because it was so heavy.
No problem.
Yeah, it was almost you are about to complete it. Maybe it's last 2 or 3 slides.
Sure. So I'll just conclude that in 2 or 3 points mainly. I think I may have been on the digitalization effect of digitalization on supply chain. So I did talk about what are the possible pitfalls that organizations should be careful about when going for digital. Yet at the same time, they shouldn't be completely afraid of going the digital way. Because there are sufficient benefits to be gained, and I gave examples of these use cases in supply chain, in R&D, in process improvement, and I think in manufacturing also. So these are some benefits that can be gained. So that is one point that I was talking about, and I did present HBA article in which the extent of digitalization is different across different industries, and why so. I did talk about that. And to conclude, in that itself, last topic was people challenges in supply chain. So we have talent shortage. There is a lot of development both in India and abroad for developing particularly logistics trained individuals. So I think that's a good move. Lastly, I spoke briefly about my own research in supply chain resilience. Resilience defined as the ability of an organization to come back up again. And I presented my maturity framework, which I said that there are 4 levels. Level 1 is an organization is just working the way it is. Level 2 is when it is internally resilient. That is, if anything goes wrong in its 4 walls, then what are the mechanisms it can use to bring up quickly up again. Then the third stage of maturity is the externally resilient maturity, where not only its own operation, but also its supply chain partners. Also, if anything goes wrong, then they have a well integrated mechanism to be able to communicate and come back up again. Rightly built redundancies are in place. Final level of maturity is what I call as evolved. I drew this from the natural world, where any organism, whenever it faces a distressing situation, what happens at its DNA level is that it undergoes mutation, and next time when it meets this kind of a distressing situation, instead of just coming back up again, it is stronger to meet the any kind of a disruption. So in the face of a disruption, if a supply chain is coming back up again more stronger, then it is a even more high level of maturity is the. So it's a maturity framework that we have come up with, and that is about to get published. That is what I concluded with, Mr. Sheikh.
Fantastic, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kalyan. Thank you very much. And we will have a very detailed session sometime, so our people can, the participants can get more advantage of hearing you. Okay,
Certainly,
so going forward.
We'll look forward for it. Yeah.
Thank you.
My
Thank you,
pleasure.
Dr. Kalyan. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.